You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. It's Wednesday, September 28th, 2022. How you doing, Kristina Dennis?
I'm loving Wednesday. How are you doing, Damon Frank? What you got
You're
going on
loving
over there?
Wednesday? You know what? I'm kind of loving Wednesday. Yeah. I'm going to talk myself into it today.
And just so everybody knows, there are certainly times that I would understand if you wanted to punch me in the face after I say that I'm loving Wednesday, but I've grown into this person. I wasn't always this, person who seized the day. So recovery does work.
Oh, that is so great. I was going to use a showbiz term. Kristina, I was going to say, I need you to be 20% less enthusiastic.
Yes.
No, I love it. I love that you're enthusiastic today. Honestly, it took a little bit to get moving today. It took a little bit, which is okay. We're into the fall now. We're into the fall. And I like it. I wish LA was more fall-like though. I have to be honest. Right. I have a little bit of fall resentment.
Does
that make sense?
Yeah,
I have fall resentment.
Yes, I do too. Prior to moving to Orange County, which is just south of LA, for people who are not familiar with California or the Los Angeles metropolis, I lived in Colorado. And so let me tell you, we had a real fall. I don't think we have that much of a fall, but regardless, the calendar keeps moving forward and there's nothing I can do about it. And I need to just get in with the spirit regardless.
Well, we can fall on 110-degree asphalt. That's about all we can fall on. You know what? Yes. It's like, because I got to tell you why I have fall resentment is over the summer, we went to the East Coast and I saw, and I could even see it then what it was going to be like, right? Like people say, oh, you should come. This is the worst time. You should come when it's, snowing, or you should come when it's fall. And we should, I believe the Midwest and the East Coast, they have a real fall. Like we go to the pumpkin patch here and it's 125,
Right.
It's horrible. And I just want a little bit of that, but it's just, sometimes it's not meant to be.
Yeah, legit. You can, that guy that always wears cargo shorts, no matter how cold it is, you can pretty much think about the fact that those of us who live in this part of California, really end up being our equivalent of the cargo guy shirt,
Absolutely. What was it? Alligator hunter guy or whatever. He was always, before he got eaten by an alligator. God, what a tragic story. But it has nothing to do with recovery or the show today.
No, it doesn't. We're digressing. Focus.
Hey, real quick, I want to tell people before we jump into the topic, which by the way is amazing, if I might add. It's amazing, the topic. I want to tell people about share, and following the show. I know we always say this. I know we always say it, but you know what? Listen, it's important to share, and follow the show. It tells the tech god in the sky that this is worth listening to. And, look, you might even save a life, because we do a lot of serious alcoholism, codependency, drug addiction topics. And somebody might be listening that is struggling. And if that's you, obviously reach out to us or someone. But if it's not you, you could help somebody that is, right? So please share, and follow.
Yeah, the numbers are staggering. 40%, right? That's what they're saying. 30 to 40% just in this country. And that's similar in all countries. So yes, please. And also, like Damon said, leave us a comment so that we can bring to light some of the things that are bothering you. There's a lot that we've learned, but there's also a lot that we can learn from you. So please do keep doing that. We love it.
Even if it's negative, we're fine with it, because we are recovered from codependency. So
completely.
Go ahead, leave the negative comment is what I'm saying.
I don't
see
care.
What happens. Nothing's going to happen.
Well, let's get into this topic. I'm sure
let's do it.
You've never been rigid, right, Damon?
Well, you know what? I wanted to have this topic about being too rigid in sobriety and recovery. I always say recovery. I always say sobriety. It's interesting because I wanted to do this topic, Kristina, because I really felt that, it's an issue. It is an issue with people.
Is.
Like people have
It
a hard
absolutely
time
is.
being too rigid. You wouldn't think so, but they do.
Oh, and it's sneaky, right? Because we all need, like, when you first start walking through sobriety, let's start with physical sobriety. We need to know how to save our own lives, right? We need these hard, fast rules. You don't drink no matter what. That's pretty rigid, right? It's pretty rigid. However, I think that's really, for me, the only thing that's pretty rigid in my life. And it took me a while to get there because all of us like rules, right? We all like having a container. Even wild, drinking alcoholics are really looking for a set of rules to live their life by. And it's very, very easy to slip into rigidity without even realizing that we are.
Well, I think you know what? You talked about early sobriety, and I think fear has a lot to do with this. I remember being just petrified that I would be walking down the street. I got sober in San Francisco. I thought I'm going to be walking down the street and I'm going to bump into a shot of Jim Beam or Jack Daniels. I believed it. I was super, super paranoid about it. Right. And rigid. And I was scared. And you know what? And I had a good reason to be scared.
Right.
Honestly, looking back, it was a healthy kind of fear, but I didn't want to live there my whole life. Right. And I was afraid that I would live there my whole life because I did have to create some patterns that were very rigid in order for me to get physical sobriety for a period of time. So Kristina and I aren't talking about that, right? We're not talking about you got to do what you got to do to be able to get there. But at some point you also have to not be held captive by that.
So, and take that and magnify it 100 times if you happen to be a codependent. And, truthfully, I believe I've never met a person recovering from substance abuse who did not have codependency rampant through their life. And that is a rule-based way to live, right? So we will work with people that say, I did it right, but the outcome wasn't that. And I end up having to point out over and over again to them and to myself, well, nobody said you did it wrong. Those are the outcomes that happened this time. There is no guarantee, that if you do A plus B, you're going to get C. I mean, there really is no guarantee. And so learning how to live with uncertainty is a major spiritual marker for all recovering people.
Oh, I hate that whole unmanageability, powerlessness, uncertainty. I don't like that, honestly. And I think people believe, I know I believed that if I was very rigid and if I followed a strict set of rules or standards, that somehow bad things wouldn't come to me, or that things would, that things would be perfect and without bumps or without emotional turmoil. But in reality, what I found is that that's just part of life, right? Emotional turmoil, life things, bad feelings, things happen, accidents happen, right? Being too rigid actually made it worse, because what it did is it broke down the paradigm of what I thought I was secure in, right? And what it did is it made me doubt that, right? Which wasn't bad, which wasn't totally bad, because it strengthened certain things. But I'll tell you, one of the things that Kristina, and I would love your comment on this, is that one of the things I learned very on in working with others, right? Other people that were recovering. And I sometimes have worked with people who, I'm just going to say it, a lot of other people don't want to work with.
Right.
Because they're frequent relapsers, or high risk, right? That kind of stuff. And what I learned is that even being too rigid there, when there were big extremes, and I'm talking if you divert from the path, you're a year or two in jail, right? Like that person, there's big ramifications for this, right? Like homelessness, consequences, big real life, hairy consequences. But even then, there were exceptions to things, right? I couldn't get this done because I got in a car accident and I got hit, or I had somebody got hit when they were riding their bicycle. No fault of their own. They were just doing it, right? They're just doing life. You do have to be you have to be open and to things, but you also do have to stay on a path. So it's a balancing. Don't you think it's like a balancing ball? And I hate the word balance too.
I
I
know,
hate that.
because it's a fallacy, right? But
It is.
it absolutely is. And this idea, I mean, bless me, I really did have that belief, do this, this is what happens. And I also had the reverse belief, which is when bad things happen to me, it's because I'm doing something wrong. And a lot of my recovery has been being able to grow my spiritual muscles to tolerate uncomfortable situations and uncertainty. And that's frustrating. That's very, very frustrating for people. But rigidity always hurts in my mind. And, I love the 12 steps. The 12 steps saved my life. But I find sometimes, and no shade, I'm not throwing any shade right now, but I find that sometimes there can become this group mentality that is incredibly rigid with, well, you need to do this. That's why you're suffering. And I just don't think that's the whole story. I think that yes, doing our inventories is incredibly important, but so is trauma work. So is, checking our feelings and learning how to become comfortable with them. So is processing. And it's never an exact science. Rigidity speaks of exactness. And that is I don't know, to me, it's a life killer. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I would have killed myself in sobriety, with physical sobriety, if people hadn't introduced the word acceptance and explained to me acceptance doesn't mean you have to like it. Acceptance doesn't mean that you don't have feelings about it. And that's what really, really helped me, is being
Damn,
flexible.
you threw some shade there.
I know.
You threw some shade on 12-step groups. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds very good. It sounds good. It takes 10 years off me right there using the word shade. You're right. I'm going to say you're right. People get stuck in 12 steps. And this is not a criticism on 12 steps, because it's not 12 steps didn't do that.
No,
the people and systems and the culture of where you're at could do that, right? And I know a lot of people who are stuck and are so rigid. I have been to groups where it's like, oh, well, Bob got a job where there's flex time, and flex time's dangerous, and we don't do flex time. We'll only work 9 to 5. I'm like, well, what if you have to work 8 to 4? Like,
right.
Or what if you have to work 8 to 8? Like, what if you only work? No, we can't do it. Like, I have been around people like that. And I've been in groups, honestly, that have like that. And that's what gives, I think, it's a bad rap. I don't see anything in the 12 steps that says that.
Nope.
I'm a pretty good, I could be a big book thumper when I want to be. I don't see anything there. That's an interpretation of it. But let me tell you what I think that does. Okay. I believe there's a place for that early on. You see this in transitional housing. Okay. Mm-hmm. Where people they maybe just don't feel comfortable or can't stay sober, or the court says, hey, dude, you're not going to go out and live on your own. You've got to live right here. So it'll be very, very, very structured. But I think that's fine. And that's needed to a certain degree. But if you so structure it, if it's so rigid, when real life comes along, like when you park in the area that says it's fine to park in, but you go back to your car and you fed the meter and there's a $125 ticket, you break. You can't, what happens is those people can't handle it. There's a death. They move the brand of coffee that they've got at the meeting.
Yes.
Literally, people freak out, right? Like the book cover changes or whatever, like the color. I've seen this. They absolutely freak out. And I'm like, that's no way to live. That's no way to live. That's not 12 steps either, by the way. Right. I don't see that anywhere in there. But that's what we're talking about. Being so rigid, you break.
Yes. And I love that you distinguish that the actual, you call it spiritual technology. I've adopted that term because I think that's great. It literally says in the book that we only know a little bit about this, and you have to go out and figure out what you need to do. And I really, I want to be compassionate toward these people, but I also want to share, no, that is not true. That is not true, that this is the only way that you can live your life. And if you make a mistake, then, oh, there's something wrong with you. You're not looking at your stuff. You're not going to program enough. There's something going on. And I think this is one of the tenets of the recovered life, is to say there's so much more out there for us to learn, and nothing is really black and white. When I share it, because I am a speaker, I will open any kind of speaking in a recovery sense, that the only thing that I've been able to do in the last 25 years is not drink. Everything else has been a spectrum of somewhat successes and some failures, and I've learned from both of them. So,
well, because the drink, Kristina, and I think why it's different, why it is on a spectrum, is taking the drink for the alcoholic puts them on the path that they cannot recover. It's
correct.
not so, like, codependency is a little tricky. And now that we're kind of diving into this, let's call bullshit on some other stuff here.
Okay.
You and I deal a lot. We talk with a lot of industry professionals, right?
Right.
Therapists, the super systems psychologists,
Yeah,
the
they don't have
the rehabs that have these systems that are good. Some of them are good, but they're unrealistic when you're out trying to do it sober. A lot of these systems, I've noticed a lot of these systems come from people who aren't drunks. They're not in recovery, right?
Right.
Like, so the fact, like, I've had people, I've been on coaching teams with people where therapists have told me, like, well, they need to hit the 18-point system when they're feeling this or whatever. And I'm like, dude, look, man, like, speaking from a recovered alcoholic who is out there doing it, you ain't hitting an 18-point system. You either got to figure out how to click into that recovery consciousness in 2.2 and connect to that Wi-Fi, or you're screwed. You ain't running anything.
No.
You're not running any system. You got to have to know how to get there, right? And I think that this is what rigidity does, is it actually keeps us from being able to wear, as I wish I could claim this, as a buddy used to say in an old Thursday men's night group I used to go to, wear your recovery like a loose garment. Yes, I can't drink, but I have to be pliable because life is unexpected. Things happen that are unexpected.
Well, and I was told wear it like a loose sweater. Maybe that's because it was fashion, was a great way for me to hold on to that. But just that statement allowed me to rest in my nervous system and move forward with options, with all kinds of options. And yes, I mean, I love therapists. I love therapy. I go to therapy.
Oh, absolutely. We love you. We love you, by
important. But if I don't have access to options, I will take myself out. And I learned this in a really big way. So for all my mamas out there, I'm a special needs mom. I share about it to the point that I think it matters for people in recovery. If I tried to do everything that the experts told me to do with my son, wouldn't be on this earth, wouldn't be here. So it is important that we get told sometimes you just live through it and you do it the best way you can. And in codependency recovery, it hurts me, and I so want to just be able to transfer my knowledge to them, like my system to their system, to look at the fact that, okay, you said something wrong. Oh, you slip back into controlling behaviors. The important part is to get up and try again. It actually builds trust. When you make a mistake within the relationship, then you own up to it, and the two of you are able to talk about it. It's never going to be black and white living.
Well, you know where this comes from. I've actually nailed this down. I think where this comes from. This does come from 12-step groups, where in the beginning, when you come in, or when you go anywhere, it could be a therapist, a rehab, a coach, a 12-step group, you walk in and things are an absolute dumpster fire, right?
Yes.
So the premise is that you have to let go and you have to surrender.
Right.
But, we've had shows on this that most people want to cut a parlay. I'll do it if this happens, or I'll do it. Right. So there is a process where you're trying to surrender. And in the idea of that I need to surrender is the idea that I've run my own life and that the way in which I ran my life, which probably wasn't rigid, it was the opposite of rigid, right? It was Lucy, isn't working. So now I have to let go of that, and I have to let somebody else run my life, right? Which is a kind of a bad codependency thing in a weird way. Like when we're thinking about that. Now, that's not what it says.
No.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the literature that says, right. But this is what I'm just going to say, the cultural nomenclature of this is how it happens. Now, if you're in a good group, they tell you, yes, we're going to tell you what to do until you're able to see what you should be able to do for yourself. A bad group is you're just going to do what we say that you're going to do, and you're never going to divert from it, or you're not sober, right?
Correct.
So
yes,
it really depends on the people that you're around. That's why I think coaching is so important, to have a good coach, even if you have a good 12-step group and you have a good therapist. Because if you have a therapist, and we're not doctors, so we're not prescribing anything or telling anybody this, but if you have a therapist that wasn't an alcoholic, okay, they're seeing things different than if you have a therapist that was an alcoholic.
Right. Well, and there are laws that preclude them from sharing that information with you. And, I work with a lot of therapists as part of a team with somebody, and each one of us has a different perspective, different training, different tools that we bring. And if you're lucky enough, I really hope that as we start to recover out loud a little bit more, that most people will start to understand that it takes a team, and that everybody deserves the support that they need, whatever
absolutely
works for them.
I was just babbling here, Kristina, we were just totally going on. Like 20 minutes into it, I forgot that we should do a break. So let's do a quick break. Let's do a group. And when we come back, I want to talk, I want to talk to the person who is right now listening that is so rigid that people are like, dude, loosen up a little bit. Like coworkers, family members, like you got to loosen up a bit. Let's talk to those people when we come back and give them some really good tips and tricks that they can actually deploy. So if this is you and you feel you're a little rigid in some area, hold tight, my friend. When we come back, we're going to be dropping some value bombs. So hold tight. We'll be back in just one sec. If you are newly sober, trying to get sober, or you've been sober for decades and are looking to take your sobriety to the next level, the Recovery Breakthrough 6-week transformation concierge coaching program might be right for you. Have Damon Frank and Kristina Dennis build a custom roadmap to get you on the path to getting what you really need. Receive hands-on concierge coaching and stay focused and productive with our daily check-ins. If you're ready to experience your recovery breakthrough and start the journey towards the transformation you deserve, book a free get-to-know-you call today and find out what is possible in your recovery. To find out more about Recovery Breakthrough and to book your free call, go to recoveredlife.us. That's recoveredlife.us.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show.
Okay, I hope all these rigid people did not break.
Yes.
Between we were out. I hope you were able to hang on here.
Well, this rigid person was. So, I keep working on it. It's a practice, right? It's not.
It is a practice. And let's talk about that, Kristina.
Yes. One of the things that I love about when somebody starts discovering their rigidity is you can really see the lights turning on. And when we work with people, we start to question, why do you believe that? What do you think? And this is a really great tool that you can start today. And it is about agency of thought and recognizing that you have agency and being able to see that the thoughts that are passing by, we are assigning value as if they are facts. It's funny that feelings aren't facts gets sold a lot, but I want people to remember that thoughts aren't facts either, right? They're still coming from our perspective. And so I always work with people in something that I discovered through the ACT program, which doesn't have as much play as 12 steps, but it's really, really effective. It's called acceptance and commitment therapy. And one of the first tools that they tell you is to diffuse your thoughts. Look at them, question them, understand that you're just thinking them and that they aren't facts. And they call it diffusion. And if you want to know what that is, it's like walk around in a circle in your living room, telling yourself, I cannot walk around in a circle in my living room. And you'll realize that your brain is not factual, that there are thoughts that are coming up, that rigidity, that we believe everything we think is true.
Yeah. Well, shout out to George Schneider here. I remember I called, who we've had on the show, business and life strategist. We've had him on the show a bunch of times, and he, if I call George and I say, hey, George, man, I got a problem with this. Like this happened. And I remember, over the summer, my central air went out when it was like 125.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was going on and on and on. It was like, and he said, Damon, he goes, this isn't a problem. It's a fact. Right? Problems without solutions are a fact. Your air conditioner's broken and you don't have anybody to fix it because there was like everybody wanted their air conditioner. It's a fact. Yes. So here's another thing that I've realized. I can't drink like my fellows.
Right.
That's a fact. Okay.
Yes.
That's just a fact for me. I've proven it. I don't need to reprove it again. There's facts, but the rest of it is maybe there is a solution to it, right? So like, I'm going to tell you one of the things that I see with rigidity with myself and others is the inability to be able to go outside my comfort zone. And this is how I got out of being this, because people say, well, Damon, you'll walk up to anyone. You'll like go do shows and podcasts and everything. I've had clients tell me that. And I said, dude, that's not me. Like,
right.
I want to hide, or I don't want to be seen, or I don't want to, like, I don't want to let people know what I'm feeling. Like, it's just not how I'm built, really. Like, and I definitely don't want to tell people that I have unmanageability and powerlessness. Like, that's not just a no for me. No, it's like, come on, dude, come on. Like, it's like the inside of me is just like
yes, dying.
Die. Yeah. But here's the deal. Like, I've learned that you have to put yourself in safe but uncomfortable positions. For example, going up to a party, knowing no one, walking up and saying, I like your shirt, or I like your shoes, or wow, I heard you talking about this. And being open to, look, if I'm rejected or whatever, like being open, just being open. Now, I say, look, if you got 4 days, don't go down to the local pub and do that.
No.
Right? Because that's not a safe place for you. But just doing that, being open to talk to people, that's a big thing.
Right.
To just not have an expectation, just the pure connection of it all.
Right. And I mean, look, some of the things that we learn are incredibly helpful, but knowing that that is not the end of the story allows us to be more flexible. It allows us to realize, okay, this was the outcome when I did this, but there are 15 different outcomes that can happen. So if instead of being completely results oriented, which is very hard for dopamine junkies, for the person that's on this podcast, it's really, really hard for him. And it might be a little hard for me. And it has to do with understanding that I am going to experiment and see, rather than be results oriented, realize there are a million different ways to get it. And that really speaks of flexibility, which is, I think, what you say a lot.
Well, yeah, you can't be, you also have to do this. You can't be this or that, right? It can't be black and white. Sometimes it's nothing. Like, I'll tell you a story. I was coaching somebody who had an extreme resentment against people who were homeless, right? Like extreme, right? And it really had to do with fear.
Yes,
that they would be there, right? Because they had come from a place. And one of the things that we did is I would have them get a bunch of money, like not a bunch, like $20 of money, right? In like ones and fives and stuff. I'd say, get $5, get a bottle of water, go out and give it to the person in front of 7-Eleven.
Right.
But when you give it to them, look them in the eye and say, hey, my name's Bob or whatever. Like, how are you doing today? And have a conversation with them and ask them, like, are you okay? Like, you know, be encouraging to them, right? Like they say, you know, and it was funny because fought, it was so rigid, like would never do it outside of his bounds. But it was interesting through the process of doing this, when we started having conversations on it, I realized it was like, he was like, you know, oh man, I hope that person's okay. And like, oh, I had no idea they actually had a job, but we're just in this situation, or they had a death and I had a death of a parent in effect, right? Like, so it allowed to break down the walls so that his world would get a little bit bigger. So every time he walked into a situation, it wasn't, oh, this, you know, this panhandler's out to try to ruin my life. It was all about how they were out to try to ruin his life and about how they were not human and he was, right?
Yes.
And that all dissolved. And it's funny, through that dissolving was the ability to be able to connect with other people that he was having a hard time connecting with.
Yes. Yes. And I love that you brought up fear, because fear is, and it does say this in our beloved 12 steps, you know, fear is public enemy number one. I know it says resentment, but, you know, codependency, if you are adult child of an alcoholic, it's called abandonment, but I think it's all called fear underneath it all. And othering people is one of the ways that we stay safe in our own mind, but it absolutely makes us much more vulnerable and much more open to bad things happen when we keep ourselves enclosed. And if anything you hear from this show, I hope that you hear that with the rigidity that you were either taught, or it's a trauma response, or you kind of took it a little further when you first started getting sober, it's going to keep you from living the best recovered life that you can have. And I say it not in judgment, but as a compassionate belief system, that being open, wearing it like a loose garment, is the better way.
Yeah, I love that. You know what? You know what I want to do now? Because you introduced the word power move earlier in the earlier show. I think I want like anytime you say these like really cool things that are golden, I'm like, that's golden. I want to go like, you know,
oh gosh.
I want to have like an air horn go off, or like power move, so people will
stay away from the button.
So people will pay attention to the actual power move. That was golden. That was golden, and that's really what it's about. You know, I'm going to give another little tip here, Kristina. Okay. I'm going to give another little tip. I think that everybody in recovery, here's something that I've learned that I can't even get it out. I got to get it out of my mouth. Sometimes my brain moves very fast. That's one of the things in recovery. I've had to slow down a little bit because I'm a fast thinker, right? I'm a fast thinker. But one of the things that I think is that these letting go, and this is something with your setting healthy boundaries.
Yes.
Most of the people would say, yeah, we're too rigid because we have all these recovered codependents that went to Kristina's setting healthy boundaries room. And now I can't, you know, if I breathe and it's out of my left nostril instead of my right, I'm in trouble, right?
No.
But I will. No, it's not like that. It's not that bad. It's kind of no, it's not. But I think the thing is too is that we're talking about being open. But I think as recovered alcoholics, you regress if you're not moving forward.
Right.
And I think a lot of the times, when we go through emotional turmoil, and look, we've both been through emotional turmoil. Yes. I know in the last couple of weeks, we both called each other and go, man, dude, like this sucks. This feels like this feels bad, this whole thing. And I think we try to avoid that. We try to avoid it.
Of course.
And I think by avoiding it, we're trying to put ourselves in a box and we can't grow. So I'm trying, like one of the things that I've been doing with myself is I've been trying to eat my own dog food. Like what I tell my clients, it's like, look, if there's going to be emotional turmoil, let it come.
Right.
Don't try to resist so much. Like don't act out and freak out. Like, you know, but don't try to like move your life around that you're not going to have a bad feeling that you might be overbooked or over challenged or, you know, a little scared that you're in a relationship with somebody who's maybe smarter than you, or,
right.
Bigger, plays a little bit more full out. Don't stop running from that and avoiding and dodging it. Let it come in and pass through you, and let it do its thing and you do your thing, right?
Yes.
Instead of running all the time. Because I think what this does is it makes you be more rigid. And I'm just going to talk from me. It made me be more rigid. It's like, you know what? No, I'm just going to feel it. I'm depressed. Okay, I'm depressed. I'm just going to, I just acceptance. I'm depressed. I'm not going to be depressed forever. I'm going to learn everything I can. I'm going to do everything I can while I'm depressed.
Right.
But it is what it is. And I don't have to try to freak out and click into some sort of weird system that's going to make me avoid every emotional reaction I might have.
So true. And fear is what robs us of actual experiences. It lies to us and tells us we're not going to live if we go down that road. But I found in my own personal history that the energy that I was spending to protect myself was actually harder than just feeling the feeling and walking through it. And unfrozen trauma, because fawn is a trauma response, right? Unfrozen trauma hurts in the beginning. But if you've learned the steps to take care of your nervous system, if you have the people around you that will provide a little safety and allow you to feel these feelings, if you accept that you're going to feel pain, anger, frustration, jealousy, and not act on it, you're just going to feel it. It goes through you and it leaves. I can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. That was a little technical issue there.
Yeah.
I think we should end the episode on this, because I don't think it could be said any better than that. And, my final thought with anybody that's out there listening, take safe risks. If you've been sober for a little bit and you need to challenge yourself. Stop running and avoiding things, because it's just going to make you more rigid. And eventually you're going to get to a life situation where you're going to break. And that is the dangerous spot for people that suffer from addictions. They let it build. They They feel that they're being so rigid is protecting them, but really it's not. It's not. It's setting them up for when something happens that is outside that boundary that will be protected by that boundary, they're going to crumble. So we hope that is not you.
Yeah. And boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are the bridge between you and somebody else and how each of you shows up in this relationship. And so that's something to remember, and we'll keep talking about it more, but I love what you finished with, Damon. I think that's so true. Rigidity hurts.
It does. Okay, guys, this is going to conclude our episode of the Recovered Life Show. Everybody go out and live your best recovered life. We're going to see you on the next episode. Final thoughts, Kristina?
Wear it like a loose sweater, because it's fall.
It is fall. Wear it like a loose fall sweater. Bye, guys. Go out and live your best recovered life.
Bye.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.